Welcome to the Art Beat of Chattanooga, where art lives. I'm your host, Jillian Collins. We're here today with Katrina Dowd, a local author, and also she's done a lot of art and jewelry making and things like that. So welcome, Katrina. I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great to see you today. So this is the Art Beat of Chattanooga on Chattanooga Radio 92.7 FM. AM 1240, and we're broadcasting live out of Hickson. You can join us on Facebook, YouTube. You can join us on either of the two frequencies on the air. If you can't get to see the show, we're going to try and describe things. And as always, we talk about art, the arts, anything creative in Chattanooga. And Katrina is an author a few times over and knows a lot about natural healing. Nothing we share today is going to be, this is not meant to treat, diagnose, anything like that. This is just studies of what herbs can do to help benefit and assist the human being in your body and your mind. So these are recommendations that are simply that. So we are disclaiming that we're not doctors here, but we are, and Katrina and I both have a background in this actually, but I'm not quite as informed as Katrina, I don't think. However, I do know a lot about herbs because I've been a wellness manager for years and I raised my kids naturally like that. So, you know, you said you have 3 books and we'll talk about that. So,
yes, I have 1 book published and 2 in the making.
All right. So Herbs for Life is the book that we have today. And I'll show that to you on the screen here. Herbs for Life, and this is a lovely book. Can you tell us a little bit about your book, Katrina? What prompted you to write this, and what its basic contents are? How can it benefit people?
Certainly. I come from a long line of people who have farmed and used herbs and things of this nature, and so it's kind of second nature. And also, I had pretty much become tired of having doctors prescribe medications for me that just made me feel worse. So I took things into my own hands and started studying the herbs and writing journals about them. And eventually the journals got large enough to become a book. I had a friend come over one day and say, "You should publish this." And I said, "Well, why not?" And I ended up finally getting it published. So
right. So now you have your book is available in?
It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. Some of our local stores here in Chattanooga carry it. So...
Hey, how about that store that's all local? You could approach them. I just saw a friend of mine from Natural Affinity down in Dalton. No, she's in, what's that one over the other side of Signal Mountain, little town over there?
Dunlap?
Yeah, she's in Dunlap, and she creates soaps and oils and everything. And I just saw a post from her that there's a store downtown Chattanooga that's called Everything in There is Locally Produced. So
Fantastic.
They might want your book too.
I'll talk to them.
So maybe they'll want my art. Who knows? You know. So Katrina and I met actually in the industry that this book is about.
Right.
So, you know, you came into when it was Harvest Grocery, right, and we began talking about healthy things because that was my job too. But, you know, what you said, okay, you've been through a lot of things physically, I understand.
True.
Yeah. So is that part of what prompted you to put this together for other people as well, to at least use as a research guide?
Right. Yes. It did start out as research, and then it became something that grew into something that I decided to put into a book format and see if I could get it published. I do have it published through Curlac, so many thanks to Curlac for publishing my book. And yeah, it keeps growing, hence the other 2 books that are coming out later.
And what are those related to?
The second book that's coming out is also about herbs. This first one is 130 medicinal herbs. The second one is around another 130 more. And the third book is about different foods and grocery items such as vinegars, honey, salt, things like that you can use for healing or things of that nature for wellness.
So apple cider vinegar, honey, things like that.
You've got it.
Like magical, basically.
You got it.
Yeah. The apple cider vinegar, I think I have to start on because, that's supposed to help you lose weight. And every woman seems to always want to lose weight. So.
What is that?
I don't know.
Oh, no, I do too.
Yeah. So, so your journey to this book and your other books has been related to kind of stimulated by your own health struggles? And you
Yes.
mentioned getting medicines that just made you feel worse.
Oh, yes. I had one. The medicine will go unnamed, of course, but I ended up in the emergency room on 3 separate occasions from one medication. And after that, I'd had enough. And I decided it was time to find a better way and a healthier way to take care of, what was going on with me.
Right.
And I did.
Now, did you have this background throughout your life, your interest in herbs and natural forms of support?
My interest in natural things for most of, well, from probably my teenage years on. When you're younger, you don't really care about this kind of thing. But
when you're younger, we won't talk about that herb.
No. But probably from my early 20s on is when I really took an interest in this.
Yeah, that's so interesting, as we've discovered in previous conversations that we have a similar background, and same thing with me. Like, I started making colloidal silver at home.
Yes.
And with the 99.9% pure electrodes and all of this, and my children rarely had antibiotics and this sort of thing.
Right.
There's certainly a time and a place, and I'm not against doctors at all. I actually, will go to a doctor when I need one. I believe there's place for medicine, but
I have a fantastic doctor.
Right. So, I'm not. I do want to say that I do support doctors and the uses for it, but have also discovered, through the use of herbs in my own life, the power of them.
Yes.
And also the beauty of the plants they come from. And Definitely. I see you have a e-version of this book that's color illustrated.
Right. The electric version is online on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and I think on Books A Million too. And it is in color, and it is absolutely beautiful.
But this is great to have in your hands because you can just flip through it. It's very organized, the book. You can see everything is very easy to see. It's very well set up. It's alphabetical. I haven't actually looked into that, but I just know it is.
It's alphabetical.
It's like, it wouldn't make much sense otherwise, unless it was by what things do. But
the second part lists the different problems that you can have and what possible herbs are beneficial for that specific
these are
item.
Suggestions. They're beneficial to the body. No diagnosis, treatment, or anything like that. Suggestions here. Just check out Herbs for Life yourself and see. So as an author, let's go here. Do you consider yourself as an author to be in the arts?
Yes, I believe so, because I've made no money on this.
That's a good one right there.
And I'm very proud of it. And this book took me 15 years to compile.
Wow.
So it's very time consuming, and it's a labor of love. It's not something that you do or anything like that. It's something you do because you love it and it's in your heart and in your soul.
Has writing been a part of your life previous to this, or did this trigger that part of you, or are you a creative writer as well?
I've always been told I was a good writer. I never really considered myself a writer until I started really putting this book together to publish.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I've been hired as an editor by a couple of companies. I've been asked to come back as an editor by the one I worked for previously. So yes, writing is a big part of my life right now.
Yeah, and it falls under the literary arts.
Mm-hmm.
Writing is a literary art form, and even though this is a reference type book, you still have to put this whole thing together to look attractive, to flow. I imagine in your mind, this is a work of art to you.
It is. Well, and I designed the formatting myself. So I'm a little proud of it.
Of course you are. It's a wonderful book, Herbs for Life. And, the information in here, it can just be a guide to some ways that you can support your body, potentially without the medications and stuff. So, I know that I've done a lot of that. I'm certainly, like I said, I will use medications and do use medications. And
likewise, there are some things that you need medications for, so always check with your doctor. There are good doctors out there who promote using herbs and vitamins and things of this nature.
My doctor too, Chip Crump, he worked at the store one-on-one with myself and others. He's so supportive of the natural vitamins and supplements, and he will actually refer people to talk to like a wellness advisor or
Right.
an herbalist
Right.
to get direction in things that he believes will be beneficial, you know, so
Right.
he doesn't turn right to pharmaceuticals.
My doctor as well. They even have an herbalist on staff.
Nice.
So, and a nutritionist on staff.
That's great. I'll have to
So-
find out about that. Yeah, it's interesting because you said 15 years. So I'm going to go ahead and plug the book that I illustrated, seeing as we're both here and we've got
Go for
published books. And this book also was 15 years in the making for the poet
Wow.
who wrote the poems, which is Fred Ballou. And I am the illustrator of this book myself, Jillian Collins. Half the time I forget to tell you who I am. But I illustrated this book. The writing took about 15 years. The corroboration portion took about 2 years. And there's 10 illustrations in here in the cover. I did all of those. But it's interesting how much actually goes into putting something like this together. It is an art form. You're always going over it. How does this look? How does that look? Does it flow?
Yes, it takes many people to put one book together.
Right, it does. So it is a lot of work. And I thought the 15-year was interesting because that's how long this author also wrote this poetry. This book is, I would say his poetry is very elegant. And if it were mine, it's more like emotional dump, you know, blah. But this is very elegantly written and it's beautiful. And this is also available on Amazon. So we both, I guess, have books here that you can look into if you wish.
There you go.
So that's pretty fun. So I had you bring something else from your past, and not to go past the book, but Katrina has been a creative. She's painted, created jewelry. I don't know if you've drawn much, but I've seen a painting you've done.
Most of the drawings and things that I do are in charcoal.
Mm-hmm.
So I have done extensive drawings, usually of the human form is what I typically draw.
Ooh, we're going to move into that one if I can drag you there, because that's just like
I'll have to bring you some of those pictures.
That's
back.
like a pet peeve of mine right now. Let me tell you.
I should have brought some with me.
Yes, I brought some. I brought a couple nudes. We're going to go there. So this is a headpiece, and this took how many hours to make? It's a chainmail. For those of you who cannot see this, it's a chainmail headdress. Why don't you hold it up? Because I don't know how it goes exactly. For that matter, put it on if you wish. But
I'm going to put it on you.
Oh no! Over my headphones. It's a beautiful chainmail headdress, and so we're gonna. Okay, I'm getting dressed up here for you guys today. All right. So now my hair is going to be a mess. Okay. So I look like I should be in some sort of movie now. So here's this chainmail headdress, and it hangs in the back like this, down, and this took how many hours to make?
52 hours in the making for each one.
52 hours.
Which is why I no longer make them.
Yeah, and it's just lovely. I mean, I wish we lived in a time when we could just go around wearing these.
Yeah.
My hair's sticking up in the back, so don't worry about that. But isn't that lovely? Is what are the jewels and things in here? What are the gems?
The gems are Swarovski crystals.
And so there's green Swarovski crystals.
Yes, Swarovski crystals. The chainmail is actually sterling silver, and the chains also are sterling silver.
Yeah, and I fell in love with this piece. It's just so lovely, and I have to say, kind of sexy and different. You know, it's just like I just want to wear that.
It's fun.
So it is lovely. So Katrina is very talented at many things, as well as an author. So this is pretty exciting to me to see these beautiful things and something very unique that I really haven't seen before.
I used to see a lot of them back in the early 90s and late 80s, but you don't see them much anymore.
Well, I think we just all have to get dressed up, put some of those on, and go out there because they're lovely. So, I mean, the minute I saw it, I wanted one. And I was like, I don't think I could pay for 52 hours of work. But, you know,
they're not cheap.
Right. And some people don't realize what goes into art, how long it takes. Like, why is that painting this much money? Because I had to work on the stupid thing on and off for 3 years or whatever.
Right.
Because it was a challenge or emotional challenge or technical challenge.
Right.
Or simply time consuming. So you like to draw, and I don't want to go right past your book, but you mentioned that you like to draw the human form.
That's mostly what I draw. I've started drawing plants when I was getting this book ready because I thought I would illustrate it, but I just did not have enough time to draw all of these plants and meet the deadline that my publisher wanted.
Right. So, hey, we can't do it all. If only we could, you know, if we could only get all of it out of our heads and out in life, what a gift that would be. But I thought it was interesting that you brought up the human form because my project that I'm currently working on and have met with some initial people concerning the breast cancer vision that I have with my work, breast cancer support and awareness, the immediate reaction is, well, those paintings are nudes. Okay.
And
have you been to the Sistine Chapel? Have you been downtown Chattanooga with the nude statues at the bridge on Market Street?
right,
The woman at the Hunter Museum that's naked, whatever.
right,
So
right.
85% of nudes paintings are female.
Yeah,
Only
that's
85
true.
and 85% of the current modern day and past artists are male. So we have to break some ground in
That's
this
true. That's true.
whole thing, So I painted here's a painting behind us that it's a male. It began with a male model, and it is now, I call it grow some bark, and it's a new technique for me. It's kind of a very sad looking man, and it looks like it's raining tears to me or something like that, just pain. And so this is like a 24 by 36-inch painting of a male. It has some cubism in it, and it's mostly earth tones and things like that. But I actually, first when I was working on the painting, anyone that saw this piece, Katrina, would be immediately, they couldn't handle that you could see the male organ there. They were like, that's all they could see. So
it's not even very distinct.
Not now, because I put the cubism in. But
okay.
Not to sell out, but in order to reach into this community, this conservative Bible Belt area,
right.
with the beauty of art and the human form. And I also had already wanted to add the cubism, so I did, but that just kind of melds things together, but it seems to really offend people. And yet you can go to any museum or any statue park and there's human
and there they are.
Sculptures and nudes.
Right.
So it's interesting that you brought that up, because as I try to move forward with my dream, and I am moving forward with it, that's one of the biggest things I get is, but the women they're not photographs, they're not even photographic, they're energetic impressions of these women and people, but there seems to be this wall.
So a lot of people have that wall. You're right.
When you draw your forms, have you been through life drawing, or do you just like the human form and you taught yourself? How did that come about?
I just I like it. I love to draw the human form. For me, it's one of the things that I draw better. I have an easier time drawing it. I don't know why. I couldn't explain to you why. But I love drawing the human form. The human form is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Absolutely beautiful. Size, shape doesn't matter. Just it's a beautiful work of art in itself. So I love to draw that and to catch the nuances, the bone structures, the hands especially are so hard to draw, just all of this.
In college, they made us
wonderful.
Draw like a whole sketchbook of just gesture drawings of hands in different positions. That's challenging.
Tough, very tough.
They are challenging, and the human form is challenging. So that's pretty interesting, that you naturally feel that way about it.
I love the human form.
Kind of relates to your whole book and it seems like to your concept, supporting the body, the human body.
Overall wellness.
Yeah, right.
Which it's not just physical. Overall wellness is mental, it's physical, it's environmental, it's all around. It's you.
Yes. And it can be challenging.
Yeah. It's always challenging.
In many ways, I'm thankful every day that I'm healthy.
Yes.
And because some people, and one of my kids in particular, struggling really bad. And if you're watching, sweetheart, I love you, and I'm gonna help you out. We're gonna work on this, Brittany. So, not to be sad and all that, but wow, some people are really suffering. And
well, they are, and it's hard to understand just what someone may be going through, or just what a certain kind of suffering is, unless you've actually gone through it yourself. Just a quick example, not to bring it back down, but I spent an entire year unable to walk, from a bone degenerative disease that I had, which luckily is now healed. I'm standing here on my own with no canes and no wheelchairs and no walkers. So yay. I'm actually going to the gym even now.
Yes.
So 3 years after all my surgeries, they've kind of fixed me up. But, until you go through something like that. So, I'll never take walking for granted again.
Right.
Or health or wellness or any of this.
Right.
So
because it is.
Take care of your bodies.
Right. And that's, I think, what ties in with everything we're talking about. Art, being an author, having artistic background yourself, and jewelry making. And it just relates to the whole person.
Yes.
That this particular daughter that I mentioned, I tried all herbal things with her, but her condition is so complex that the herbs actually aren't well absorbed or accepted by her. So, sometimes you just have to go to a medical solution, and they don't always have the solution either. But, so I really am excited about your book, Herbs for Life. And, I think I know Katrina, and I can tell you that there's been research behind this. I know that, years of it, like she said, 15 years.
Yes.
And, you can definitely get an electronic version of this. And where can they do that?
Definitely Amazon.com has the electronic version. Last time I had checked, Barnes & Noble did. I'm sure they still do. And Books A Million does carry the book, the hardcover book. I would assume they have the electronic version.
All right. So, and I did spell your name wrong on the feed. So it's Katrina. I was racing to get it going. Katrina Dowd, D-A-O-U-D. K-J Dowd, D-A-O-U-D. And do you have a website or anything like that? Or you just have your book on Amazon?
There's the website. It's
so you can find this website.
Yeah, you can find the website, www.kjdowd.net.
Okay,
my goodness, I believe I haven't.
I imagine if they
just
just Google Katrina Dowd, KJ
if you
Dowd,
Google KJ Dowd, you will find.
You're going to find this book. So if you're looking for some solutions and some guidance concerning your natural health and well-being, because herbs deal with the whole person.
Right.
They're going to support all of different things. You can approach all different things. Like ashwagandha is an adaptogen herb, and that's going to give you a lot of benefit. So yes, www.kjdowd.wordpress.com.
That's my second website.
Okay. So I would say if you even just Google KJ Dowd, D-A-O-U-D,
you'll find it.
And I'll try and correct that on this feed. But so this book is great, and we have only a little bit of time left. Is there anything else you'd want to share in this next minute or two with that's on your mind, or that you want to share about you or your book?
Well, how about an interesting little story that a lot of people I don't think know about? Because you brought up colloidal silver.
You got about 1 minute.
Okay, you brought up colloidal silver.
All right.
Colloidal silver, actually, where silver comes from. You know how people go by a well and throw a coin into it, the wishing well phenomenon, right? Do you know how this started?
I don't.
Okay, an actual usable working well that people used to have on their property to have drinking water. What you would do in your well is you would throw a solid silver coin into it as an antibacterial. And so that's how wishing wells came about, throwing coins into wells came about, and what colloidal silver is based on.
I feel like we should be wearing the chainmail headdress to talk about this. No. But I know that farmers used to put silver coins in the milk to kill E. coli bacteria.
Yes. So it does all kinds of things.
I love it that silver came about through. That's a wonderful story.
Isn't that nice?
Thank you for that. That's, so they would throw that in there to keep their water pure, because silver, is proven to go after bacteria, fungus, things like that.
All kinds of things. Silver is very good. Don't take too much of it, though, or your skin will turn gray.
Some people have the blues phenomena, yes. But I did use silver my whole life with my children, but I was reasonable with it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, pink eye, boom, it's gone like in one dose.
Too much of anything, even a good thing, is bad.
Yep. See, we're already on time because it just flew by with Katrina Dowd, author, living here near Chattanooga, creative artist, and just a wonderful person who wants to support the well-being of people. So please check out Herbs for Life, Katrina Dowd, and we'll be back the second half with W. Michael Bush, a local artist who is going to just share some amazing things about his dreams, paintings, and society. So we'll be back in a little bit. See you then.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio. AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
We've got a table here at Delia's ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection. Loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, near the Thrasher Light. Quesadillas, smell them coming. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos made fresh every morning. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch or dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. Mention Sean Hannity and save a dime on every dollar of your tab. Yep, 10% for the Nooga Radio listener.
He stole out so much cash, such a huge mountain of cash, that he's become a national star. Rick Davis. You know the story. Cash, 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 and more cash. People can't believe it. They want to see it. And now Rick Davis has a new TV show. National TV, USA and Canada. He's got the gold and silver, diamonds and rings. You get dizzy just thinking about it. Rick's selling. Rick's buying. Cash, 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 and more cash. And now a mountain of cash catching the Hollywood spotlight. You know where it is. Brainerd Road. Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Cash, 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 and national TV cash. That's really big. Everyone wants to see it. Money flying out the door. Rick Davis is America's jeweler. It's better than Hollywood. It's right here. Cash, 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 and more cash. Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Brainerd Road.
You love me. You really love me.
Chattanooga's best kept secret, Boyd Speedway. Come see the fastest dirt late model drivers in the South compete for a purse every Saturday night. Pit gates open at 3, grandstand opens at 5. Racing starts at 7. Bring the whole family for a night of fun as they tear it up on the dirt track. Go to BoydSpeedway.net and check out the Dirt Simulator. BoydSpeedway.dirtsimulator.com. Chattanooga's best kept secret, Boyd Speedway. Fun-filled, outrageous racing. We'll see you Saturday night.
The racetrack roars to life every Saturday night. Catch the explosive action only at Boyd Speedway.
Boyd Speedway.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Kayakers were paddling in the bucolic Greenway Farms in Hickson when they spotted a shocking sight, a woman falling 30 feet to the ground below from a bluff. The kayakers called 911 and paddled over to assist. The Chattanooga Fire Department had to carry her for 100 yards up a steep embankment and then another 100 yards to an emergency vehicle where she was rushed to the hospital. The 20-year-old was described as stable in the ambulance. In Ray County, close to 200 people are packed into a jail that's only rated for 87. And now the fire marshal has placed a 30-day deadline on the sheriff to get the situation fixed. This is on top of a 60-day deadline from the state, also demanding the situation be alleviated. The sheriff says he's doing all he can. On July the 1st, 133 new laws will come into effect. One of them is the Tennessee Hearing Protection Act of 2017. This would allow suppressors in the state of Tennessee for firearms. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Expect warm and humid weather out there through your afternoon highs, lower 80s with a few on the scattered showers and thunder showers heading in from the south. Tonight, lingering showers and thunder showers diminishing after midnight, lows 68 to 70. For Friday and Saturday, continued unsettled with more scattered showers and thunder showers. Celebrate Independence Day with Big Shots Fireworks in Calhoun, Georgia. Exit 312 off I-75, 3 miles west toward Rome on Highway 53. Big Shots Fireworks in Calhoun and now in Adairsville as well. And I'm Swargene 12's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Welcome back to the Art Beat of Chattanooga, where art lives. I'm your host, Jillian Collins. We're here, as always, talking about art, talking about Chattanooga art and beyond. And today I'm very excited to have W. Michael Bush with me. Thank you. Right up here. Very nice to have you here today, Michael. And, you know, Michael is a local artist and beyond, correct?
Well, we live in Bell Buckle, which is about 80 to 90 miles away, but I've been fortunate to be included in the Chattanooga family of artists.
Yeah, I know the Area 61 and Keeley there is pretty supportive of your work.
Keeley, David, her husband, and Rudd Montgomery were very nice a couple years ago to invite me to join the collection, and they're predominantly all Chattanooga artists. So to be included was a very nice thing.
Yeah, and you have a nice presence at that gallery.
Yeah, they've always given me a lot of wall space. They've given me opportunities that some of my other galleries, and we have galleries from Florida up through Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee. They gave me an opportunity in particular for the Mirror on America collection to do last year that the other galleries just weren't willing to do. And I was very excited about that.
I saw that exhibit personally more than once, and that I saw the pieces that are in your short video that we can
Right.
share with people how to find that as well. And they're amazing. They're
They're certainly a departure from my traditional. I'm a figurative expressionist, very much into color usage. But the reality is that I've got a bit of background. 2 years ago, I went to see a show of a fellow student of mine from Ringling in Sarasota that was having a show at the Marietta Museum. And when I was blown away by it, I came home and I told my wife, these are wonderful things. And I feel like I'm doing good artwork, but there's no meat to it. And I'm really wanted to do something that had a little more story, a little bit more meaning, again, a little more meat. And so I sat down and began to draw what were the first pieces of the Mirror on America, which is about 20 paintings. And that show, again, is very well taken off. I've got it booked until April of next year. And then this winter, I came back and I did Reflective Conversations, which is the same heart to it as the other paintings. And that's what Keeley is showing right now is Reflective Conversations. And we're hoping it'll go to CCA like Mirror on America did last year.
and tomorrow night at 6.
No,
No.
the 7th.
The 7th,
It's the
first Friday.
First Friday on the 7th.
First Friday on the 7th, people can go to Area 61 and meet you and some of the other artists.
Oh, absolutely. They always have nice turnouts. They're good conversations among the artists. You can meet them, see which ones you like, and you can certainly see a sampling of the Reflective Conversations show.
Yes, yes, and the gallery itself is beautiful as well. I love that gallery. I feel like they takes a step into not worrying about what the tourists or whatever may want. They actually are trying to make a statement more about art.
Well, there are several reasons, and I spent a little while trying to get into that gallery and I had looked at some other options around here. But I produce a lot of work, as some artists do, and consequently, I like a gallery that does what's called salon hanging, which means that they hang literally from floor to ceiling, because it gives you more exposure and gives you more opportunities to sell things. But it's just the way I prefer to see it hung, as opposed to what's called museum hanging, which is you hang a painting, you go 10 feet, and you hang another painting. And while that allows you to study that painting, it really doesn't give you as much of a chance to see a lot of good artwork. And Keeley has done an excellent job of putting together a group of artists.
Truly, one of my favorite galleries I've really ever been in. And I hope to have my work in there at some point. There's actually a waiting list, and I'm, still working on that. But, Keeley did like some of my stuff, and I would be very honored if I end up hanging there.
Sure.
So, it's a beautiful thing. So could you describe, Michael, some of what the consistence of this coming show is to you? What are some of the paintings in description of how you see them relating and how they stimulate the conversation? You're going into schools, colleges,
right,
universities. Your goal, from what I saw on your video, which is can you tell, where can people find that video?
That's on Vimeo.com.
Vimeo.com. It's also on your Facebook.
Right. And you need to, if you go to Vimeo, you need to look Mirror on America, W. Michael Bush, and it'll take you to it. It's a short 8-minute documentary done on this to help solicit some funds as well, to try to get the show out there a little further than I can afford to reach.
Right, because now you're under a...
We have a 501c through the Bell Buckle Arts Council that is taking contributions. Those can be made to Post Office Box 5014, Bell Buckle Arts Council, Bell Buckle, Tennessee 37020. And what we're trying to do, many colleges and universities don't have money to allow artists to be brought in as visiting artists. A few have a small stipend. But put together this kind of a show of 20 to 30 paintings, transport it, hang it, and go back and pick it up, you generally runs $2,000 to $3,000. So, any small contributions help defray the cost. I can do it for a short period of time, but I can't sustain it for a long time.
Right. And the goal here, like if people do want to get on board and support this whole donations part of this would go to allowing Michael to go in as the artist with the work that his heart produced about initiating and eliciting conversation among the college millennial basically generation.
Correct. What the whole purpose of the show is, and I go in and I initially sit down and I said, you just by looking at me, you can tell I'm a short, old, fat, hippie artist.
He's not even sitting down. Just
You're
kidding.
Right. I'm jumpy periodically.
But you're funny on your video though, because you have a very interesting, the Vimeo video, very interesting because you're a character and you put your hats on and things, and I love that.
Thank you.
It's engaging.
Well, a lot of people will remember me from Area 61 from my different top hats and bowlers and boaters that I wear for each opening. But those were more often for openings than I do all the time.
Yeah, I'm when I have my first personal opening in Chattanooga, I'm definitely going as Marilyn Monroe.
Ah, right.
So
there you go.
Been planning it forever.
A bit of a stretch for me to try to do something like that.
It's a stretch for me too, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, to give you one piece of humor, when we finished up the video that you're seeing, a documentary, a good friend of mine who is an excellent documentary maker made that for me, and we were showing it to several people, and we were sitting there. It was the first time I'd seen it, and I expressed to him, I said, how when you hear your voice on the recording, you never sound like you think you sound. And they said, yes, that's pretty common. And I said, what amazed me about that is I watched that whole video and I couldn't get over how much I looked like George Clooney. Well, the entire room burst into laughter.
That's good.
I don't look very much like George Clooney at all.
That's good though. So you've got a great sense of humor, and I think that's part of art. We have to have.
Sure.
And your work has a lot of humor in it. It's satire.
I have done a whole series based on humor. I did a series a few years ago that was called Parables, and it was all paintings that were getting off your high horse, and it was literally a man on a horse with people with ladders. So I like humor. I like to get humor involved in the pieces. The things I'm doing now with Mirror on America and the things that are going into the schools and the universities as I tried to tell the young people, these are not answers. These are simply essays. You all are the ones that are going to have to come up with the answers. My generation came up with a few, but we certainly didn't solve all of the issues. And they began to discuss them. I have a tall, thin painting, which is 6 foot by 2 foot, divided by a piece of plexiglass of a middle-aged woman at the bottom and a young man in a dark suit standing on her shoulders, looking straight up into the air. And the title of that piece is, I Don't See Any Glass Ceiling From Here. Well, obviously, he's past it. He can't see it, but that's all she can see. So I want the young people, especially at CCA, were really into talking about the glass ceiling because the election had just taken place, and it was pertinent to their everyday life. I have the first piece I did in this series was called Portrait of an Inner City Youth, and it's a young African-American man done in a purely charcoal and then paint around it. But I used a whole series of police targets, and I said, this was not an essay on any one crime. This was an essay against all of civilization who sits around and watch young men in the inner city be brutalized and murdered on a daily basis. And we become so used to it that what we do now is we just go, oh, well, now next comes the weather and then the news. And we've forgotten about it.
Yeah, or we go on Facebook and we put a little frown on there or tears. But,
right.
That's why I think your work, what you're doing right now, Michael, is so important to society, because the millennial generation that I've met are very intelligent, on fire people. And I think the information age is going to offer them ways to find a lot of solutions in this world. But the art of conversation and debate is being lost.
Sure, it is.
It's all typing and texting. And
Well, that was when I've taken this into schools, I've been able for young people to sit there and offer their opinions, and we discuss each painting, and I can tell them what I saw when I created it, but they look at it and see sometimes other things in it. The most important piece is just what you said. It stimulates a civil conversation. I have yet to have people get angry or hostile or raise their voices when talking about these subjects. And that's the most important thing. If we can keep this civil discourse going, then the paintings have had real power and may change lives.
Yes. And I really haven't seen works a lot like yours. I'm really excited that I did get to meet you and have you on the show, because I've been following your work at the gallery for some time now.
Mm-hmm.
And I often go there just to enjoy the works at the gallery. And, I've spent a lot of time personally with the pieces you're talking about. I've seen them.
Well, you were talking about the Millennial, and there's a piece in the gallery right now called Millennial Compact, which is based on the incredible amount of student debt young people are coming out of college with, which is a crippling amount of money. How can they go and buy a house or a car or anything when they're sitting there with $30, $40, $60, $100,000 worth of debt? You're starting them off 10 or 20 years behind where they should be. And the painting portrays lots of school books crushing down on a group of young people. And then below that, a very small painting of nothing but money. And I don't understand it. I don't necessarily have to understand it, but it's a pretty frightening thing if you're a young person coming out of college today.
Yeah. And what do you think about the fact that for the most part, whatever degree you get, especially if it's in technology, is basically almost outdated by the time you're out of school?
Absolutely. And many of the schools can't
That's
afford.
a good painting right there.
Yeah, that is. and that's just it. There's not an absence of subject matter for me.
No.
There's a dearth of subject matter out there, and it's fascinating. And in some of the conversations, I had a young Black girl say to me, well, have you thought about doing something on the plight of young Black women and single mothers? And I said, well, I know I have never been in prison, and I did a prison painting here, but that's not a subject I feel really comfortable trying to approach because I don't have enough knowledge to it. Now, one painting that I came back a year later and I did this year is called Welfare Queens. And it's a piece that shows mixed race children, white woman and Black woman, both wearing tiaras, and hanging from the side are tiaras that you can put on, have your picture made as part of the Welfare Queens. But the idea is that Welfare Queen was a title from 30, 40 years ago as an insult. I guarantee you there's nobody in the world today that wants to trade their lifestyle for being a welfare queen. They're not exactly living in the lap of luxury.
Yes, and I think society didn't. This is a special subject for me, okay? Because my apartment was condemned late last year, right around Thanksgiving, and through that I was seeking what's the next step? I can't go in my apartment. My stuff's in there. There's condemned for human habitation signs. So as I went to different agencies trying to get anybody engaged to assist me as a tenant, I saw Black mothers and children at social services, at all these different places for help. And it really made me angry, not just that I'm condemned because of neglect, but these people, these single moms and with little children, some of them homeless, no groceries, maybe their place got condemned or they were thrown out, what are they going to do? And I think society putting that, I've seen the Welfare Queen painting that is currently at Area 61, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And I've seen that this 2 weeks ago, I saw it. Society, it's a catch-22. You can put that on a mom who's on welfare and needs it, but that's not going to encourage her to take the steps further in her life. So the tiara, what does that mean to you, the painting? What are you're saying it was a negative. How does that become a positive in your painting?
Well, what I'm looking at there is not at them, but at the rest of society that looks at the term welfare queen is implying that this is rewards beyond belief.
Oh, yes.
And in reality, it's not. It's a dismal existence with very few amenities to it. So if you think it's so good, jump in and join it. Just slap on your tiara and stand there and have your picture made right along beside them. And maybe you'll get an idea that it isn't benefits that are just exorbitant.
That they're not like living high on the hog here. This is poverty level living. This is
below.
Yeah, below. This is, if you've ever had to apply for assistance, it's a dismal world. And watching these young moms, that really touched my heart, because that's a special subject to me. Women in general in society, the plight of women, coming from the north to the south. There's a difference in how women are accepted in the community, in the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
So I just find your thoughts on all of this intriguing, and your work's amazing. So I could probably ask you questions all day, but I'll let you talk some more about your stuff.
Well, one thing that I wanted to point out, and again, I mentioned this to you on the radio or on the phone the other day, is that there's sometimes a bit of a generational gap. And I've been working on several paintings that are part of the human trafficking. But the predominance in human trafficking today, other than forced labor in the agriculture industry, are young women in the sex industry. And that really offends me. And so I decided I wanted to show something that was a metaphor for that. And I chose a paper doll. And I did a 6-foot-tall painting of a 1950s paper doll. It's a blonde with flipped up hair in a swimsuit, with her hands splayed beside her.
Was her name Midge? Because I remember those.
I didn't play with them. I know them. I have
Good one.
Yes. But I wound up also then taking some luan and cutting them out in the shape of dresses, and I covered them in currency. I covered one in American currency, and one in Asian currency, and one in European currency. And I wanted to show that these young women value didn't come about because of their humanity or them as human beings, but only as the monetary worth that they were to someone else. And you could hang this money on them and then peel it off and put a different type of currency. And that was where the real value was. Well, I took it into CCA, the high school there. And as I'm explaining, I'm not getting the normal feedback. And finally, one young lady raised her hand and she said, "What is a paper doll?" Well, the generational, I think paper dolls have pretty much gone by the way. And so unfortunately, it doesn't have something that they can really relate to. So I'm going to have to look for a different subject when I'm taking it to the younger people and keep the paper dolls for museums and colleges.
That is very interesting, because now, color forms were there too. Paper dolls, color forms. I played with paper dolls all the time. So you had the little tabs and clothes would fall off. You have to put them back on. And
right.
Then there was color forms with the magnets, and those are fun. Now you can just go up to your phone and do whatever you want with anything.
Well, that was I thought it was a brilliant metaphor. In reality, it had much more limits than I thought it was going to have.
Well, as in all brilliant things, if we went back to the work of the masters, we don't always understand everything they implied socially. So right. It's still brilliant. We're just
we're
wise souls now.
Right. Wiser.
We're wiser souls now.
Well, the things that I'm doing right now, we offer a title that we think is pertinent. I can tell you, I have a very good friend who taught at Webb School, a private school in Bell Buckle, and he helps write some of the titles for me because I made a horrible error on a title a few years ago, and he and his wife discovered it in the gallery. And I'll let you know that I was doing a series on authors, and I was doing Edgar Allan Poe, and I had a raven, and I wanted it was very small painting, only 12 by 12, but I wanted it to just be rapping and tapping. Well, not having spell check on the canvas and not being an English major, but being an art major, I wrote raping and taping as the title. And he and his wife spotted it, and the gallery owner almost fainted, immediately wanted to take it down. They said no, they were going to buy it. They wanted it. And they live in Bell Buckle. Well, now I said, well, since you've done that, now we have to sit down and you have to help me with titles.
Right. That's quite interesting. That one titled itself.
Yes, it did.
Yes. And that's an interesting point, about art too. And you've obviously learned to do a lot of those aspects of things, but it's difficult as an artist to manage all the bureaucratic ends and all the photographic ends and all that. as well as somehow hold back the creative stuff that's trying to come out all together at once?
It's I shift gears a couple times a year, and I found I do the political stuff all winter long, and then when spring comes, I switch gears and I start doing more traditional figurative expressionist pieces, which there are a number of at Area 61 also. But those then get shipped out to the different galleries, and those are the pieces that I earn money from. Where Mirror on America and Reflective Conversations, the paintings, generally speaking, are not for sale or the price that people are not going to buy. But in all honesty, having looked at them, you can see these are not paintings that somebody's going to want to put above their mantle or in the dining room. The subject matter just isn't for that. But I want to keep them as an aggregate collection so that I can then take them to the places and they have impact, where one or two begins to water it down. 20 of these stories are pretty strong statements.
Yeah, I know that when I saw the show, it was Mirrors on America that was at the gallery last year. And I saw that show many times, and it was very powerful. And your paintings mostly are very large, and they're sometimes very tall and narrow. And I thought it was funny because, you know, your shoe painting you just did, shoes?
Yes.
I have just recently went down to Goodwill, bought 20 pairs of shoes because I noticed the patterns on the bottoms of the shoes. So I did a painting before I ever saw that. I painted some yellow on there, and then I took the different patterns of the shoes. So you have the tops of the shoes, and I have the footprints of the shoes. Well, I thought that was interesting.
It is, you know, you have great minds.
Collective consciousness.
Right.
I thought, you got to be kidding me. I mean, of course, yours is amazing, and I'm just playing with it so far. But
well, what that particular painting is about, and if you notice the background, one painting is red, one
we
is
have
white,
18, 17. We're almost out of time. So website for you.
If it's wmichaelbushart.com.
wmichaelbushart.com, and you can see probably a lot of these pieces there.
Yes.
And do you also write bios about yourself and things there?
There's everything there.
Okay, so go to the Area 61 the 7th of July, and there's going to be artists there. I'm going to do everything I can to be there and meet Michael, see the work, see this wonderful gallery here in our beautiful, beautiful Chattanooga. We're really happy to have you here, Michael, and I'm very pleased to get to personally meet you after seeing your work over the last couple of years and hear from your own lips about your goals and your heartbeat. So thanks for joining us on the Art Beat of Chattanooga. Have a wonderful weekend.
Always look on the bright side of life.